Hey, and welcome to Kelly's Magical Realm. I want to talk to you today about awakening to consciousness and not feeling heard. Have you noticed as you do the spiritual, mental, physical, all the healing work you do on yourself, you feel that the more you do that, the less that those are around you can hear you. I was one of those star seeds born into a family that is unawakened and living in the 3D consciousness. And I grew up not aware of boundaries or toxicity, etc. Basically, my life to this point has been surrounded by unawakened people not on a spiritual path. So you can understand how frustrating that can be when you don't have people around you that can understand you. When you have spiritual gifts, I was always able to have dreams that came true or just know things. And I had no one to teach me about these things or to understand them. I felt and still feel at times that I am not heard or understand. I even play back conversations in my head thinking, is it me? Well, did I explain myself correctly? And then I have to stop that blaming, of myself and just redirect it into a different thought. I have had family members shift the blame to me, which is not easy. It had been hard when family stops talking to you and they don't give you a reason why. If you are a healer, such as myself, you will notice that your path in life looks much different than others. My good friend Sarah, she recently pointed out to me that I signed up before I came down to earth, that I signed up to go through these lessons so that my spirit could evolve. I have heard that saying before, but just at this particular time when she said it, it just clicked and it made more sense. And she went on to saying that these triggering emotions that I have, these traumatic events, have made me go inward and to do more healing on myself. Work so that my soul could evolve and so that I could help others. That piece of advice made my soul feel more at ease. I think the biggest thing on the spiritual path that I have noticed, at least in my situation, is it's hard not having support. I've been really wanting that. Thank God I have my friend Sarah, because she is also spiritual and I can relate to her, and it's nice to be heard and it's so nice to be understood. And if you are on this awakening path and you don't feel heard, don't worry, because you will meet people that can understand you and that are like you. I think sometimes we look for that outside validation, but the more we learn to trust ourselves and to trust spirit, the easier it will get. It's not always easy. There's times when I haven't trusted spirit, and at times like, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? But it's all happening for a reason, Not every day's perfect. As we go through this ego death, you'll notice your ego will pop back up to challenge you, to fight with you. It may even get louder some days, but just redirect it and remind yourself you are a spiritual being having a human experience. The people that can't hear you are not only not awakened, they have not done the work on themselves yet. They need healing, but they don't want that. A lot of times, us people that are going, to therapists are going because we've experienced people that really need therapists that won't do that work. So we end up doing it, and it's not always easy to admit that, that you need help. It's easier to avoid people that are doing work to heal and to change. Being on a spiritual path, like I said, is not easy. It's not perfect. No one is. Being on the spiritual path, we still feel anger, sadness, depression. Don't forget, us spiritual beings, Amanda Ellis pointed this out. She's a spiritual channeler. And she said that when you are on the spiritual path, since we can communicate with spirit, we can go very high, but we can also have lows. So that's one way to look at it. Just like my friend Sarah, she's actually the person I collaborate at Mystical Arts when she tried to explain to me, that we signed up for this, and that makes sense. We signed up for these lessons and things that we go through before we came down here. But it doesn't always, there's days when you're just like, well, why would I sign up for this? And that's normal to feel that way. Having these feelings are normal. Don't get trapped into false positivity where you feel you have to be positive 24/7. It's not possible. People always look at and say, well, if that person's a healer, well, how can they be having a bad day, or how can they be feeling angry? Well, we're human too. We're having a human experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And like I said, you're not going to be positive 24/7. It's not possible. With anything, there comes a balance, the yin and the yang. Recently, I was trying to explain to myself, to a family member, I feel, and I felt my whole life, I've always been on this trial because I could never do anything right. Not just by family members, but with other people in my life. I was always doing something wrong. So I feel that I'm always on trial, and I always have to explain myself. With all this healing work that I've been doing comes up emotions, especially from the past and, inner childhood work. I have had I've had very traumatic experiences in my childhood and trauma also as an adult. I was physically abused and mentally abused my whole life, and except for the past 5 years, because I've been on this deep healing journey. I was actually afraid of some family members, basically to the point I was afraid to tell them how I felt, and that I was afraid of them because I've never been able to have a normal conversation with some people. And this trauma came back up. It's been coming up for the past 5 years. I've been doing this healing work, It's come up before that, but I used to bury it. And sometimes it comes up with physical symptoms, where I actually get physically sick. Trauma comes back up so we can heal it. I also had abandonment issues that I had to work through. So when family members or friends stopped talking to me, this triggered me as well. I asked one family member, why they didn't want to see me, what was going on. One would avoid it to say, and not answer the question. But this particular one that I asked said that I was acting negative. And then I was trying to think about this, and I told this person I was only trying to tell you how the rest of the family had ignored me, stopped talking to me when I needed them the most. And that really hurt me and broke my heart, especially when it was a hard time over the summer. I was going through a real hard time from April all the way to maybe almost September. And I needed surgery, and I was having biopsies, and I was in so much pain from a cyst. I was crying myself to sleep, reaching out to people, and nobody responding back, or they didn't have the time. If they did, it was brief. And then finally they just cut me off, and I was in so much pain, and I was also living in a rundown place. The landlord wouldn't fix anything, bees coming in, ceiling leaks, everything in my world was falling apart. The neighbors that lived in my building were doing drugs, partying all the time, threatening me. I was living in fear, and yet again, here I am explaining myself because, like I said, I always feel like I have to explain myself. I felt like this my whole life. But anyways, I finally moved out of that place, but I went through it all alone. And I tried to explain this to the family member, Again, I felt like I was on the witness stand being judged. I always feel like I'm being judged, like I can't do the right thing. I'm, being called names. And this family member, when they said I was being negative for how I felt. But what didn't make sense was it was okay when they complained about their abusive relationship just a few days before, that they were in a toxic and awful situation and how bad this person was. They didn't see the contradiction that they were saying. That I couldn't say, be upset about things that happened to me, but it was okay that they were. Because they were not ready to heal. They're not ready to take any fault, and it's easier to put blame than to heal. I don't want to live like that anymore. And I came to the conclusion that it's actually a blessing in disguise when people walk away. It's God's protection. Maybe it will be for a while, maybe it's permanent, but we're all made of energy. And if our energy is different, it will not be able to connect. If we try to look at things in these terms, or energy or spiritual development, I think it'll make more sense, because it makes more sense to me. And also, this time on our planet, it's a time of awakening. Not everyone will awaken, and you have to come to terms with that. I've decided to stop asking why this happened, or why this person won't talk to me. Just accept it and just whatever. Because it is what it is, and I'm here for a bigger purpose than that. I want to make a difference here, and I do have a family. I have a family in heaven. One of my spirit guides is actually a soul member, a soulmate, So I do have people that love me, even if they're not here on earth. They're in heaven. I actually have a large team of soul family members that didn't incarnate in this time, and they're helping me behind the scenes. And remember that you do too. We all have spirit guides, we all have guardian angels, we all have that protection, and you can call on them and ask them for help. Things in life will fall away, but that's okay, because God has a plan, and it's not for us to suffer. It's to learn to love ourselves, to grow and to expand. And, the spiritual path is not always easy. And at times it's like, when so many people let you down or make you feel like you can't trust them, it gets hard. It gets hard to trust them again, or other people. The spiritual work can be messy, but in the end, being awakened is better than being in the dark and suffering and just silencing everything, I would never want to be that way again. I would never want to not know what's going on. I am grateful for the spiritual path, and I just wanted to share this with everybody. It's good to get your feelings out. It's good to express yourself. Just remember that. Whether you have to write things down or talk to somebody, let it out. Let everything out. Who cares what people think? Because in the end, only God can judge us. Have a great day.